customer brings what they believe to be a very old artwork.
I got a beautiful piece of Renaissance art. Opened this very carefully. I mean, it's 500 years old. You got to be careful with stuff like that.
All right, so you have what appears to be an etching. You're saying it's 500 years old?
Yeah.
Who was it done by?
Raphael.
When someone walks in my pawn shop, they say they have a Raphael.
Right.
It's sort of like walking in here, I have the Holy Grail.
My wife and I got it, and her family gave it to us when we got married. So family claims they had it for another 125 years or so.
And he's considered maybe the greatest painter ever. So how much were you looking to get out of it?
I was looking for $95,000.
The customer gives an offer, and Rick calls in an expert.
You don't get much higher up the pyramid than Raphael. He considered the third great master to come out of the High Renaissance. He wasn't a third banana. I mean, he was considered a prodigy. He worked for 2 popes.
The drawings of Raphael are selling like 42 million.
Oh.
And he was very much influenced by Leonardo's explorations of that and Michelangelo's. Obviously, it is a print.
Right.
But I want to take a closer look at it with my magnifying glass.
Sure.
The expert talks about the print's potential value.
You can see where the edge is uneven, where it's been trimmed.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. This paper is maximum 100, 150 years old.
I think it might be a collotype, which is a photomechanical method of reproducing artwork they were doing in the 1850s. The problem with a value on that is the more the artist is involved in the creation, the higher the value. Obviously, if Raphael himself had done an engraving, we'd be talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But this was done long after his passing.
So what do you think it's worth?
Between $300 and $400, Rick.
It has more value as a collectible than necessarily a fine art piece.
Wow. Okay. It has a lot of value to me.
Well, obviously, we're not going to make a deal because at least we
Okay.
found out exactly what it
We
was.
found it out. We've solved the mystery.
Thanks, you guys. Drive safe.
Rick receives a call to check on something that's way too big to bring into the shop.
These are amazing.
Here's the story. We just bought this property. I don't know anything about trains, so you're the first guy I had to call.
Well, they're private cars. Can I look at it?
Sure.
I mean, I drove by this thing a million times. I never thought it was like this inside. Literally one of the ultimate displays of wealth back in the day. This was $10 million in today's money. That's most likely a bed right there that pops out of the wall. You have a desk right here. You would have like guys that you're involved with business. This thing's like the size of a 747 almost.
Rick goes inside the train car to inspect more.
I mean, this is really, really impressive. Probably a handle somewhere. You can take this another bed that would come down. Another really cool thing is that it's 110-volt AC. They were still competing between DC and AC at the time. This thing has just been sitting in downtown Las Vegas. You walk inside and you're literally walking 110 years in the past.
The seller, without wasting any time, gives his offer.
You think you can get $1 million for these two?
I have no idea. I mean, but I do have some pretty wealthy clients that are into train stuff.
Rick calls in an expert to learn more about it.
Derek has acquired the Pullman car. Well, I think it's a Pullman car.
I have looked at these from the street many times. Pullman did a lot of different kinds of cars. They did passenger cars and all of that, but they did these executive cars, and this one, in fact, was built in 1902 for the president of the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad. There's a few things that are a little more modern than it would have been originally. That doesn't matter. This is just a very nice car.
So this wasn't a conversion?
No.
Dude, you've given me a great start.
Thank you.
This is a great opportunity for Rick. Let's see if he is going to make a deal.
There are actually people that use these cars today that as a way of going across the country and recreating a lifestyle that's long gone.
All right, dude, I think I can sell this thing. Buy this thing and store this thing somewhere would cost a fortune. And it's way too much of a risk. So I'm going to try and find a buyer. I'm going to have that buyer go direct to Derek, and I'm going to make a little money in the middle.
The guy walks in with the Book of Mormon and wants to sell it.
Brought for you a book, Book of Mormon. Book of Mormon is not just a book of theology. This is the 5th edition, and this was the last one that was actually printed in Joseph Smith's lifetime. I'm going to ask $25,000 for my book. This one wasn't printed in many copies, maybe 600-something copies. So I was going to ask something on the order of like $25,000 for it.
Damn. It's a unique historical document. If there's one thing I know, you have to be extremely careful when you're buying books.
The expert provides detailed information and recommends a price.
The Book of Mormon. Wow, this is actually really hard to find. The Book of Mormon is hugely important in American history. Rick, this is by far the most valuable book you've ever had me appraise. Colloquially, it is known as the 5th edition. These early editions of the Book of Mormon will still hold a lot of collectible value. I would appraise this book actually at about $40,000.
Oh.
That's a high value, and Rick knows how to make a deal.
Realistically, what's your best price?
I think 25,000 was really fair.
Can you give me a little and just let me do 24,000?
You gave me an extra 1,000 last time. This time I'll give it to you, so we'll do it that way.
It's a deal.
One of the most important documents in rock and roll history comes into the shop.
I actually got one of the most important documents in rock and roll history. The contract between Brian Epstein, who was the manager, and the Beatles, creating the partnership between the two of them.
You have the original Beatles contract.
And the agreement basically stated what Brian Epstein's cut would be.
Entire contract wasn't going to be valid until Brian Epstein actually got them a record deal.
That is correct.
Without wasting any more time, Rick asks for its price.
Okay, how much do you want for it?
$1 million.
That's a lot of money. I'm going to call my guy. You know, I can imagine someone spending a ridiculous amount of money to make a brand new one of these. If this thing checks out, I will do what I have to do to get it.
I've heard about this piece before. It's been well documented.
The expert comes in to check the contract.
In terms of their signatures, I mean, they're still the most sought after. It's not uncommon to have them together, but on a contract, that's a pretty rare piece in itself. I'm just looking for live ink. I'm looking for overlapping. Yeah, it starts to get darker. You could see one pen stroke go over the other. And these are definitely live signatures on here, so that's a good thing. You have some really early signatures of the Beatles. As I've tried to pull out some super early stuff that I have on file, the Harrison signature is just, you know, very early signature for him. John Lennon wouldn't sign John W. Lennon, but I'm still seeing a lot of the same similarities here, especially in the double ends here.
So is it real?
There's no question that this is genuine.
The value is recommended by the expert, and Rick tries to negotiate.
What's it worth?
I'd put the value of this piece right at around $500,000.
You're still stuck at $1 million?
I really got to get $1 million.
I don't see it.
Talking about history here.
I mean, you're not going to like my price. I mean, I pay you like $350 for it. You know, I have to look at it. I think I can probably get $500,000.
You know what? That's an incredible offer, but I'm really going to have to stick to $1 million.
I would go $350. That's cash right now.
I'm going to have to decline on the $350.
Good luck with it.
I'm disappointed I couldn't make a deal, but I really had to find the right buyer. Today just wasn't it.
A suit worn by the United States' first president is presented in front of Rick.
So is this George Washington's too?
It is.
He's a pretty fit guy.
No, he was 6'2", but he wasn't a really large man.
If I could go back and have a cup of coffee with just about anybody in history, it'd probably be this guy. To me, he's one of the most amazing men in history. He really is. So where'd you get it?
It was passed down from family member to family member.
Rick seems to like it.
Do we know the date on this thing?
I think it's from the 1750s or 60s.
So Washington was always very aware of how he presented himself. On a piece like this, what it's dependent on is provenance. There are missing pieces, that sort of thing.
So you enticed me with a sword that's not for sale, and this thing right here, does it have a price on it?
How do you think Rick reacts to the price?
Well, it's one of my highlights of my collection, but everything has a price.
So how much? I didn't get the suit, but you know what? It didn't fit me anyway.
A seller entered the shop carrying Jimi Hendrix's 1963 Fender Stratocaster electric guitar.
1963, American-made Fender Stratocaster. Very, very special. This guitar was actually played by Jimi Hendrix.
Do you mind if I pick it up?
No, absolutely.
Rick picks up the guitar and asks questions related to it.
He actually held this guitar that you now have in your hands.
Is there any pictures of him playing it on stage or anything? Or?
No.
And where did you get this?
It was actually owned by a guy named Skip Jarrett. Skip was the chief engineer at Juggy Sound Studio. And after they wrapped up all the production on Band of Gypsies and all that, they gave this guitar to Skip. My business associates and I acquired the guitar.
How much would the seller be willing to take for it?
How much do you want for the guitar?
I think I'd be willing to take, say, $750,000 for it.
I have a friend who, if this thing is real, he will know.
You mind if I take a look at it?
No, man. By all means, that's why you're
Awesome.
here.
An expert comes in to authenticate the instrument.
There's a couple of things you'd want to look at. The tremolo bar. These are usually bent and angled up. You play the guitar upside down. He flattened a lot of these out, made them straight. So for playing the guitar like this, my wedding ring hits the guitar left-handed. This serial number here, L14985. This guitar has actually been documented. No doubt, this is definitely one of Jimmy's guitars.
The expert wants to confirm one last thing.
Cannot believe this.
So what do you think it's worth?
Anywhere from $750 to good auction, $1 million.
All right, thanks, man.
All right, man.
On a personal level, I absolutely love it, but you have to find the right auction.
The only thing left is the deal. Will Rick make the purchase?
Let me give you $450,000.
450? Man.
My thing is, I take all the risk, you walk away with cash.
Yeah, I'm thinking 750, man.
A lot of commissions and a lot of people got to get paid to sell this thing. I'll give you $500,000.
This guitar's worth more than that. It just is.
If you want the money now, I can go $550.
750, really, man. That's a bottom dollar. I can.
All right, well, have a nice day. Tell me if it goes to auction. I might bid on it. 6?
I can't do it, man. But I'll call you if I change my mind. He's fired one last bullet across the boat there with, honestly, I was starting to kind of get a little bit more tempted. You want to come to a fair point in selling something of great value, don't be desperate about it.